What's up, guys? It's our wrestling podcast coming back at you with another episode. This is Dave Vicious, along with Justice Total Package and Craig the British Bulldog, bringing you our perspective on the world of professional wrestling. No inside sources, no ties to the industry, just stories from the diehards, sharing opinions with you. Today's topic, the legacy of the Four Horsemen. For audio fans, give us a listen on Apple, Spotify, and iHeartRadio. And for video, check us out on YouTube at Our Wrestling Channel. And you can also look to your left for some illustrious options that Jess has given to you. And he would just be smitten if you gave him a follow on Instagram at O.W.P 2019. Well, let's jump in. We got the legacy of the Horsemen. Let's talk about the landscape before the Horsemen in the early to mid 80s.
Let's take you back.
Take you back in the Wayback Machine.
40 years ago, people. 40 years ago. So check your geography and your timing and your line by the door. What? I just make no sense.
Itty bitty baby boy. We had domination of clear baby faces and clear villains. Tag teams and single wrestlers operated mostly independently. Managers existed, but rarely controlled like entire units. Territory wrestling rewarded realism. There was believable toughness, or wrestlers traveling city to city together. Championships meant legitimacy. It wasn't just for props sakes. The reason why you held the title, Jess and Craig, you guys have talked about this for years, is because you were on top. You were the one that everyone said thanks for the house because they came to see you. That's why you wore the title, and you had to get big enough and get wild enough with the crowd and get over enough to take that 10 pounds of gold we always talk about, right? So it was a big deal before we get into television. And pay-per-view, which well before PLE. Just something to think about. It was a different world back here, right? But the birth of the Horsemen was 1985. They formed after an on-air interview where Ric Flair casually referred to his group as the Four Horsemen. Didn't he actually say Four Horsemen of the Apocalypse? I'm trying to remember.
Arn Anderson did.
Okay, one thing about law. Possession is 9/10 of the law, and as you see, I am possessor. Now then, are you man enough to take this away from me?
No, not at all.
See anybody standing around man enough to take this away from me?
Well...
Okay, now when you talk about Jim Crockett Promotions, you're talking about the four horses, the four people that make things happen. You're talking about Double A, Ole Anderson, Tully Blanchard, and Ric Flair.
He did, okay.
Yeah.
So that makes sense. So the original lineup is Ric Flair, Arn Anderson, Ole Anderson.
Did you say Four Horsemen of the Apocalypse? And he's like, I did. I said
and we have J.J. Dillon as the manager.
I think that's what I said.
Like, what's funny is like they even needed a manager, by the way.
Right.
I think it was a good accent. I think it was a really good... I mean, this was the decade of the managers. Like, the 80s was all about managers.
It's true.
So I think...
all I'm saying is I think, like, if you had gone back and looked at it and thought about it, you wouldn't have thought that the Horsemen ever had a manager, but they did. They really did.
And I think what bothers me about it is the most famous picture of the Horsemen. J.J. Dillon is in trunks, and I think he was just about to wrestle a wrestle. So he's not in the suit; he's in like this red top and then trunks. And I was like, J.J. Dillon shouldn't. It's like one of these things is not like the other. He should have just. been
Bobby Heenan did that a lot too. He'd be like in the mini Andre outfit, like in some pictures. And I'm like, what was he?
But he had the jacket over it, right?
Yeah.
He always had the jacket over it. Yeah.
Yeah.
That was kind of like what jacket was that? It was like the O.W.P jacket or whatever it was. But it was like
it's like that starter silky with like bedazzled stuff on the back with the star.
It was a straight zip.
And it would be like his name in cursive on the back or something like that.
Yeah.
Like the brain.
Yeah. Probably, I think it said the brain. Yeah. We jump around a lot here, but it's fine. Hey, why did that matter? They weren't just random allies and friends. They actually earned their spots within this faction. Every member was either a champion or a title contender. Their bond felt real. It wasn't storyline or convenience for that matter. So
Emotional Flair was crying every night. He's like, I love you guys. You guys are great wrestlers.
I mean,
now,
85 was a little before I started wrestling. I think I started at like 86, 87 for sure. And the only exposure I had to the Horsemen was through PWIs and the Wrestler and Wrestling magazines in black and white, which always focused like pretty much half of NWA. So it was almost like a ECW fan that hadn't seen ECW yet. They looked cool. And the articles were cool and the pictures were cool. They were just, and when you started seeing it and finally got cable and TBS and kind of seeing WCW and NWA on Saturdays and stuff, you could see them. But They were ultimately very cool before I even saw a videotape of them.
Yeah,
and I was
that's
very
how I
intrigued
started
by it.
watching them too, because they were in the magazines, and I didn't start watching WCW on a regular basis until 91. 91, for some reason, that's when I really gravitated to WCW, and I started getting their pay-per-views all the time. My very first WCW pay-per-view was Great American Bash 91, which was considered one of the worst WCW pay-per-views of all time. And so when I first started watching WCW full-time, Horsemen were in the past because Flair was gone. So Flair had left and went to the World Wrestling Federation in 1991. So I started watching WCW on a regular basis pretty much right around the time Flair left, and then he was gone. So I just would watch stuff on tapes or read in magazines about the dominance of the Horsemen and everything. Yeah. I didn't really live through the first couple versions of the Horsemen. We just read about it, which is how powerful they are. Which is because we still revered them even when we didn't watch them on a regular basis.
And it could be my mind tricking me, because you know how, like, thinking back, things that you feel for sure like never happened. I want to say that I did see a few episodes of the old NWA set with the flags in the back when they were running. And I think I remember there was a syndicated show on Channel 13, KCOP in Los Angeles, which had Joe Pedicino and Gordon Soley, I think.
Yes.
And they
Joe
always
Pedicino
showed like
knows,
clips
right?
of.
I think it
was that what it was called?
I think it was called Joe Pedicino Knows, I think.
And they would show clips and interviews from all the different territories. They wouldn't just focus on one. It wasn't like WWE. I don't think they showed any WWE, but I want to say that they showed like clips and stuff there. That was like a catch-all show, like a Talking Heads, but then they showed clips. So I think that's where I would first saw it before cable.
Well, I think the reason why you guys, gravitated so quickly is because the way they established themselves in, 85 and 86, they quickly defined their image. They had the expensive watches, they had the suits, had limousine drivers, limousines, women, private planes. I'm doing my best Flair. We're going to show Just do this because he's the best at his Flair, especially when he's yelling. And they weren't cowards. They fought fair until they didn't. Their violence was strategic and not chaotic. They had a goal set on winning and making money. And that is attractive, in the wrestling business.
Tony, even me, as well educated, as well groomed as I am, sometimes I lose it. But the bottom line on everything I've said the last 2 weeks can be summed up like this. We are wrestling's elite. We are the Four Horsemen. Woo! And you see, we take a great deal of pride in answering to each other when we have a shortcoming, whether it be a girl we don't like, a car we don't like, an airplane we don't like, but most of all, when one of us falls or stumbles for a second, we all jump on the bandwagon and make sure that the recovery period is short.
There had to have been some groups and territories, because someone will be like, in the Eastern Florida territory, there was the Annihilators and there was 4 guys. I don't know. But I mean, they were like the first big, they were the first big super group that I remember, and they dominated. They held all the belts. Like Flair was champion almost all the time. Yep. Ole and Arn were tag team at times. And then when Tully and Arn would be. If not, when Ole and Arn were tag champions, Tully was TV champion, Arn was TV champion, and they would all rotate. When they got Wyndham in there, Wyndham was U.S. champion, Luger was U.S. champion. Like, so they, that early formation from like 85 to 87, 88 was like, they always held the belts. They were just red hot at that time. For like 3 or 4 years, they were these heels that you wanted to beat. Polar opposite of WWF. Like, Vince was like his dad. He wanted a babyface. He wanted a San Martino, a Bob Backlund, a Hogan, and he wanted just to feed them challengers. But that was what that fan base, their appetite, they were used to that. If you were on Crockett and you're a touring company, meaning you go from territory to territory, they were just the biggest territory of the NWA. To have this heel group go to Mid-South, to Florida, to everywhere else, it meant something, because they weren't national necessarily, even though TBS was everywhere for the most part at the time. I mean, it was when cable was getting bigger in the late 80s, it got pretty big. But they didn't have the reach that Vince did, because Vince was paying for syndicated television. He was basically paying to have superstars and Wrestling Challenge be syndicated.
They weren't national, but they weren't regional either. They were
and not like Vince didn't tour or go to wherever he wanted to go. But when you're a territory group or champion or faction. You have to go everywhere. So they got famous the hard way, meaning they showed up in your town. You would see the Horsemen.
They were the traveling circus.
At the time, it was revolutionary. It was, yeah, dude, you're going to hook him every time. And then you'll leave and you'll come back in X amount of months. And it's like, fuck, dude, he's going to get him this time. And then they'd rematch in a cage and the Horseman would figure out a way to get in the cage. And, you know, it was just kind of, before it got really burnt out, like, I hate to say it, until Turner bought them, Turner did try to take them national. So then you saw it all the time. And, you know, then it became dusty finishes. And you know what I mean? Like, it became all that stuff. But in the mid 80s, it wasn't cliche. It was like fucking heat seeking missiles. You fuckers, like, you escaped. How the fuck did he get away from us? Well, it's because Blanchard fucking came in and did this, or, you know, and so that was the amazing thing about the Horsemen in the mid 80s that hadn't been really done yet anywhere else.
But I'll tell you, you can't really have a great heel faction like that come out this way without some fantastic feuds in the territories. In 86 to 87, they were the villains the fans loved to hate because of these feuds. Dusty Rhodes was the blue collar hero, you know. The Road Warriors, Magnum TA, feature cut very short. As a big Magnum TA, looking back on it, that guy could have been something big. That car wreck was terrible. But you know, it was Dusty's like, you know, I've dined with kings and queens, and I feast on pork and beans, and he was that guy. He was the ultimate fans. You know, good guy. You had invited to your house and meet your family and have dinner with you. Flair would make fun of your table and tear it apart and, you know, laugh on his way out your door for the crap you tried to feed him. You know, there's a real story that Craig has about Ric Flair. We've talked about it several times, where he tried to buy him a drink and Ric Flair looked at him and said, "You can't afford what I'm drinking. You just can't."
They did travel like that. They were in Crockett's private fucking jet. They had to travel like that too. Ric Flair would legitly give, I'm staying at this hotel, here's the address to the Sheraton, and here's my room number. And it was his legit room number. Like, he wanted fucking trouble and or women. That's what he wanted. Like, he wanted both. And he wanted lots of liquor.
Usually they come together.
Yeah.
Usually. But they elevated babyfaces by jumping them backstage. They would break bones on the kayfabe side of it. They made victories feel earned, especially when Jess was talking about there'd be a lot of dusty finish, a lot of chicken shit heel stuff to get over on when the ref wasn't looking. So when those wins finally did come up, when those faces finally got over, it was a big earned win. And even the crowd, they're, oh my God, they finally got him. Yeah. They finally did it. It was such a big deal.
That comes from territory booking, right? When the heels would come around and fight your number one baby face, and then you'd never beat them fair and square. They'd always kind of find a way out of it, and a dusty finish would keep it.
Into the ring they go. The Horsemen stomping on Michael Hayes. Ric Flair. They're holding him up, Jim Ross. Michael Hayes, it's got very, very personal here. But Flair getting ready to come off the top with a Horseman holding Hayes. Thank goodness for the Garvins.
Would keep the
keep
the crowd
happy. The
Horsemen
made Luger. They made Wyndham. They made Sting. Wyndham was I mean, I know he was tag team champions with Rotundo in WWF before he came over, but they really made him as a single star because he joined them, but they also made Sting twice. They made Sting in 1988 when Flair went to that draw with him at the first Clash of the Champions. On that same card, which nobody talks about, Luger and Wyndham defeated Anderson and Blanchard for the tag titles, and they said that pop rivaled the pop that Hulk got when he beat Sheik in Madison Square Garden, and people were saying that the place was shaking because someone finally got to the Horsemen. They finally beat them, and I think that that's a lot to digest like that. And then later, we're gonna kind of yada past it, but in 1990 or late 89, Sting joined the Horsemen and was a part of the Horsemen, and then they turned on him in the beginning of 90 to propel Sting's singles career to eventually beat Rick, which he was supposed to beat him in 1990, but he blew his knee out when he was doing a stunt trying to climb a cage to get to Ric Flair and the build up to that. And then he didn't end up beating Flair until July, or was it July or June? June or July of 1990 at Great American Bash.
Kind of lost the moment there, yeah.
The Horsemen played a big part in making those baby faces. And unfortunately, the company was always in turmoil, especially after Turner bought it, with who was the booker? Who the fuck is advertising this stuff? And that sucks because they did do a really good job with the Horsemen from the mid 80s to like 1990 of like that group. And they tried to groom a lot of people to be the faces, and it would not work, I don't think, because the management sucked and booking sucked. And, people just, they were changing regimes all the time. So unfortunately, the Horsemen hit those rocky waters, but they were really important for Crockett / when Crockett sold to WCW.
It kind of became...
bought you a little time because of what you've done.
Nah, you're too easy. The whole deal is this. You got 2 hours to make up your mind, and you're no longer a horseman. And if we ever see you again, you're not going to be quite so lucky as you are tonight.
Wait a minute. This doesn't make any sense. Hey, wait a minute. I want to...
Come on. Look at this.
I tried to tell you. I bought you some time. Now do the smart thing. Smarten up. Get out of this business. Get rid of that contract. Get out of my life. You're done.
I cannot believe this. This is the greatest thing I've ever seen in my life.
It kind of became too many people in the room, and it gets harder to manage is what it is. But when you talked about the peak years, Barry Windham was a big addition, that ideal horseman. Luger was a high profile one. He wasn't there very long, but it had impact. Sid Vicious, that raw power, and then War Games was like specifically to contain the Horsemen, that defined innovation. And now we're doing War Games now. It's been revived since 2022 and the WWE, another dusty creation, if I'm not mistaken. And it's back, and I love War Games. I think it's one of the best pay-per-views. It's definitely one of my favorites, if not my favorite. I love War Games. It's awesome. Survivor Series War Games was.
It just hit me
to adapt Survivor Series. That's what I was going to say. Go ahead.
It just hit me that the same fucking company, like, didn't let the Horsemen put anyone over, and then they did it again with the NWO and didn't let anybody get over. Like, it's really weird. But the Horsemen, I feel, tried. I feel if you're going to compare the two groups, Flair was
think the
trying.
Horsemen put people over when it mattered.
Absolutely, and that's what I mean. Like, but the company would like to despite itself now, and then they get to NWO, and then yes, you had big fat heads like Nash and Hall and Hogan that didn't want to do it, but then like when they would actually get him in the ring, like nobody would put their foot down and be like, "No, Sting's going to beat you clean, fucker, and you're not going to do any bullshit." No, Hogan's all no, like it kind of the fucking company like just couldn't let a heel faction groom the next face superstar. Not at all. Even with Goldberg, they're like, no. Like, it's crazy to me that fucking company. It's amazing. And I didn't even think of it until we said it out loud. NWA / WCW had 2 of the biggest heel factions in the history of pro wrestling. In NWO and Horsemen. And they just fucked it up. Like, it's like, fuck, man. And they brought the Horsemen back. You're going to read on. The Horsemen irritated us. And I only say that because I just feel they were doing it to like shut Rick up, like after a while, like especially in the Monday Night Wars, the Horsemen were a big deal, but they were never the power that they were in the 80s, like ever. After Flair came back, like to WCW in 93, like it was never the same. And it wasn't not the same because it was old and tired. It doesn't have to be old and tired if you have the bookers that are willing to not make it old and tired and make it fresh. I mean, nobody ever did.
They definitely struggled with the identity. Territory wrestling was dying. The Horsemen were just no longer the new threat. They were kind of like the always around kind of threat. But when this winds down, you still have some notable members. Arn Anderson is kind of like that stay. It was always Rick and Arn. Like that. That's one of the things that never changed, right? Brian Pillman was that very loose cannon energy. I wish we could have seen more of him. He was, rest in peace. That guy, especially WWF after, was some fantastic stuff that was coming. I feel like he was on the cusp of exploding, and just shit happens. Ric Flair was always the centerpiece. Paul Roma considered an odd man out. We always thought that was a great addition to the Horsemen. That it was just done terribly. He was a fantastic fit for the Horsemen based on who he was and how his character worked. They just mucked it up, honestly. So here's the final Horseman era for the last 4 years, 95 to 99. It was mainly Rick, Arn, Benoit, Dean Malenko, and later Mongo Michael. Honestly, I can't think of anybody on this pod that didn't like this era of the Horsemen. It was fun.
When you look back, it's so funny because, I mean, wrestling-wise, Mongo didn't belong, but character-wise and attitude-wise and energy-wise,
they were fun.
He absolutely did. He was a Ric Flair. Like, Flair said he would light the room up. I'd light the room up. We'd drink and fucking go nuts. And, like, they were two peas in a pod. And Flair always has said just amazing things about Mongo, just saying, like, what a great guy he was. And, like, he knew he couldn't wrestle, but he was like, whatever you guys need me to do. Like, he just wanted to do it. And God damn it, if we don't look back sometimes, even on the bad matches, and he 99% of the time had bad matches, but like I belly laugh even before he passed. Like I laughed like heartily, like just at Mongo being ridiculous and almost killing someone with the tombstone, but never killing someone with a tombstone or hurting someone with a tombstone. It's really funny how you can look at him and go, he is absolutely going to paralyze somebody. Nope. Like
Eddie Guerrero has a belt in his hand. That belt, I believe, is the U.S. title belt. Oh, he nailed Jeff Jarrett with it.
Well, that was the wrong guy, obviously, by the look on his face. Oh, man. Get him covered. Cover this guy right here. Come on, Mongo. Be smart now. Be smart.
He covers Jarrett.
He's got him. Does he got him? 2, 3. Yes. Yes. A new United States champion. The first title of this man's career.
How about that?
Probably in the shortest space of time in this professional sport of WCW Pro Wrestling, this man has become United States Heavyweight Champion. This is what I'm talking about.
Nope. Like,
he never did.
Yep. Nope.
He never
we could tell tales of somebody who's super professional, like Owen Hart, and super experienced, almost paralyzing, and equally as experienced and professional Steve Austin. But you can't say, and then Mongo dropped him on his head and he never walked again. You can't say that because it never happened, which is fucking insane. Like when you go back and watch it. Speaking of that era, there were so many great moments. Brian Pillman joining. The foursome of Anderson, Flair, Pillman, and Benoit was fucking awesome. Like when you just say it out loud,
so
you're like, what the fuck? Then when they reformed it, that magic moment where Arn Anderson retired, and I hate to say it, the next week when the NWO mocked him, it was like everybody talks about that. Everybody talks about that. The 1998 when Rick was fucking legitly suing the company in real life, but came back in Charlotte, and one of the few Nitros in 98 that they actually beat WWF in the ratings because they were starting to sink at that time. But like that moment when Flair came back and he called Bischoff a son of a bitch, and he said, "Go ahead and fire me. I'm already fired." And those promos that I talked about were just fucking amazing. All Horseman based, all around the Horsemen.
Your history. You are a liar. You're a cheat. You're a scam. You are a no good son of a bitch. Fire me. I'm already fired. Fire me. I'm already fired.
Around the Horsemen. They just never booked the Horsemen right because Bischoff didn't care for the Horsemen, and he just would want to put Rick and the Horsemen to shut him up. That's really all it was.
Yeah. Right.
I'm glad, and if you didn't get a chance to see the Horsemen in the 80s, the very least, I'm glad at the second boom period in the Monday Night Wars, younger people who are old now, but I mean younger people got to see something that resembled the Horsemen. So yes,
well, and arguably too, Jess, there's been DNA in that everywhere, right? So people have seen versions of the Horsemen. Evolution comes to mind. That's a direct tribute to the Horsemen. One of my favorite factions. I don't think it gets enough play. That's just one of the most talented factions out there with Flair, Batista, Randy Orton, and oh my gosh, who am I missing?
Triple H, you said,
Triple H.
Yeah. That's fine. You can forget. That's fine. There's no problem.
I think Craig enjoyed the fact that I forgot about him.
They were the sister or brother of the Horsemen. If there is a direct faction, I could say that is a descendant. Like if you did a family tree, the Evolution's part of them. Like because of Flair and because of his influence.
Yeah.
Yeah. And the Bullet Club, fantastic global dominance all over the world, major branding. I think it finally technically disbanded last week.
It's
you guys were talking about
and
it.
they're a
It's like
perfect
20-year
hybrid.
thing.
They're a perfect hybrid of the Horsemen and NWO Bullet Club because they like the black and white, which was obviously an influence by NWO, and then the Horsemen camaraderie and like the athleticism and preaching. They were all great workers. So I think that Bullet Club is a perfect combination of the two.
Right. Undisputed Era. What do you guys think about that?
I loved Undisputed Era. Like Adam Cole, Kyle, like all of them, like were just great.
Yeah. The Elite. Cultural business power, I mean, but the one I like at the best of this is Imperium. I think Imperium is underrated. Fantastic.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Little faction there. And those guys are off doing, at least two of them are doing fantastic work at this point. So why can't it be created today, guys? I mean, there's no territory system. We got a lot of overexposure. We have faction after faction after faction.
The reason why it can't, I mean, you have
tough.
Judgment Day. Like the reason why the Horsemen can't be created is because everything is for, I don't know how to word this, especially in Triple H's WWE. Like the ending, I think, is already predetermined when Triple H comes up with something. When the Horseman was made, it was like, how do we come up with something in this territory system that's just going to make money? And then there was no ending.
And then who's going to rise up and take?
Yeah,
it?
there was no
Yet,
ending
it'll
in
come.
sight or anything like that. I think now, like with WWE, and don't get me wrong, Judgment Day is really dominant. Like Judgment Day is a great faction. The Bloodline, again. So maybe they did recreate it today. I did purposely leave that note in there to maybe argue and say
where would Dom Mysterio be without Judgment Day? He would have been.
Yeah,
gone.
it's still everywhere. I think the Bloodline. Where would the Usos be? I mean, the Usos were over. Don't get me wrong, but really, like everyone's gonna. Roman Reigns reinvented his career, and we stopped, booing him, even though he was a face when we were booing him. Like this helped him. The Bloodline storyline and faction helped him. Sami Zayn got as over as he's ever been in his entire career. From being in the Bloodline.
He's not feeling very Uso
I love that question.
And honestly,
it can be created today. It has been created today. I just think there's always an ending in mind. Go ahead, Craig. Sorry.
What reminds me of the Horsemen in AEW, except for one member, and I think one of the things that you need to make a Horseman-esque stable is you need one leader, and then you need a duo going after the tag team champs or mid card, and then a mouthpiece. And I think they tried to do it this last year, but failed. But no, good Lord, Don Callis family. But like the Hurt Business, if you think about it, they're in suits. They're all about the money, living a lifestyle, got a good mouthpiece with MVP. The problem is you had Shelton and you had Bobby. You tried to get MJF. I think they tried to do another angle of someone else adding two. You never got that little fourth or whatever and a rise above, but they aesthetically kind of looked Horseman-esque.
You're right. There's a lot of almost, but I mean, and the reason why I left that note in there for Dave to say is I think they did make it twice. I think Bloodline and Judgment Day are perfect examples of if you do it right, it could be fine. Judgment Day is like a kind of mid-card faction now, but I don't think that's a bad thing. I think they still do funny skits. They, Liv is great. Dom's still a part of it. Like as long as Dom's still a part of it, as long as Dom and Liv are there, I think they're fine. Even if they break Finn off, which they should have done that a long time ago. So I mean, this is a great episode to talk about. I know, Dave, you have more questions. It has been, to answer your question that I left in there, it has been redone. Their influence is everywhere all the time. Even NWO, even NWO was kind of people were thinking they're the new Horsemen. It just was a different version. It was a more reality based. The storyline was different with them, but and I think Horseman didn't have a storyline. It was Rick's storyline. It was whoever Tully was feuding with the storyline, and it was the tag team champions. And if Wyndham came in there as U.S. title, who was Wyndham feuding with? The Horseman was never a storyline. They were legitimately a faction that just kind of went on and kept going until they didn't, and then they started again. I think that's the difference of the Horsemen is the Bloodline faction is a storyline. The NWO should have been a storyline, but it just shit the bed because nobody wanted to lose. But the NWO was a storyline.
The NWO became the whole company. It was outrageous.
Most other factions are a storyline for the most part, whereas the Horsemen, they just were a faction. That's it. And
it was almost like they were the territory. They were the territory.
You just booked them.
Everything had to go through them. I don't know,
the parallels with
evolution.
Vince, though, even though Vince never had a defined foursome and they tried the corporation and they would switch in that thing, it all very much based on like the class struggle of the horsemen. It's like you don't flaunt your wealth like to middle America and to Americans. You like to be like humble. So if you wear suits and you flaunt your cash in your face and be arrogant about it, that's like a model that's been done from everything from DiBiase to McMahon to everything the corporation was.
Yeah.
It's an instant hate when you're a bad guy, you're an asshole, you're arrogant, and you flaunt your wealth and make fun of the poor.
When Kevin Owens was trying to be the biggest heel ever, he was wearing a suit.
Yeah.
All right. So greatest faction ever, Horseman? You guys, nobody disagrees.
Well, that's debatable. You've got NWO, you've got DX, you've got Bloodline.
Yeah.
You got a 40-year span.
Yeah, it depends on how much time
take
has
its own
passed
episode.
and when you grew up as well. Because a lot of people will say DX.
Are they the most influential faction ever?
Yes.
Then?
Yes.
Yeah, I think it goes without saying. Best Horseman lineup. It's got to be when the Crippler's in there for me. I love the Chris Benoit Dean Malenko setup is my favorite. But
I'm gonna go with
because it was later for me,
which is fine. I like that you represent that time period. Yeah, technically, I mean, Flair, Benoit. Well, you got to throw Jarrett in there because Jarrett was in and out like at that time. I'd say
it's true. Yeah.
My favorite version was Flair, Wyndham, Anderson, and Blanchard.
The picture you literally have up here on the last page. Yeah, I had a feeling you're going to say that.
That's my favorite.
But that's a good one because
it certainly wasn't the first one because
technical guys too. Sorry.
Ole was a waste. I mean, if Ole was someone else besides Ole in that first original group, would have been something. But yeah, I agree with Jess.
Well, and Ole, no, I mean, I get it. He's an old fuddy-duddy, and he was a fucking grump when he was alive, and he was kind of a shitty. He was shitty. But at the same time, like he just had a belief, and I don't discount like the first Horseman. Like Blanchard was a TV champion. He had an amazing feud with and U.S. champion. He had an amazing feud with Magnum. Flair was the world champion. Anderson and Ole were tag champions. That is not a bad fucking faction. I just for some reason I gravitate to Wyndham because I love Wyndham. He was so rawly talented.
Was Wyndham carrying the U.S. title or just what title was that?
US TV? It was. They US all title. Four held the titles. It was Flair's champion, Wyndham is U.S. and Anderson and Ole as tag team. That just connected to me more. But I can't discount that. I get what you're saying, Craig, and maybe it's because I look at Ole. I'm like whatever, like But at the same time, like I really enjoy.
I think a lot of people look at Ole and go like,
they had all the gold at that point. I mean, without them, there wouldn't
absolutely.
be the rest of it.
I guess what we're trying to say is whether you're a fat, out-of-shape truck driver, whether you're a skinny geek pushing a taxi cab, whether you're a doctor or lawyer that doesn't have half the money we have, this is the way life is. If Ole wants to slap Road Warrior Hawk, he'll do it. If Tully wants to spit on Road Warrior Animal, he'll do it. If Iron wants to take Dusty Rhodes, do all that, he'll do it. And Nikita, if I want you, all three of them, to hold you, I'm going to slap you, I'm going to spit on you, I'm going to kick you, and I'm going to go, woo, all night long.
Yeah. How about the most underrated member? I'm gonna stick with mine. I'm gonna go. Dean Malenko might have been the underrated member of a Horseman set. Someone who doesn't get a lot of time on the mic. He wasn't very good at it. It's probably perfect for a Horseman set to be in a faction like that and just be able to show off his in-ring ability and then do some heel work. Yeah, and plus we just love Dean Malenko. In there is fantastic. But that's my guy. Who's underrated?
I'll say Tully. I think he never lived up to his full potential. I know he kind of crashed out, but had he kept his head on, who knows what he could have been. I mean, he was great, but I think he was underrated for what he could have been.
Just going to say Ric Flair.
No, fuck. Yeah, Ric Flair is so underrated. Oh, man. There's so many different ways I want it to go.
You could say Mongo. Mongo was kind of underrated.
No, there's.
I mean, you got Pillman, you got Luger, you got Benoit.
It's funny that you say that. It wasn't Luger. Luger wasn't underrated. Like he was meant to be there for a second and then propel, and they did that with him. So I like Luger's trajectory. I don't think he was underrated. I think that I was. Oh man,
probably the best.
I was going to go really man. I was. Oh fuck. It's so tough because there's like 3 or 4 guys swimming around in my head. I was going to go really dark and say Roma, because I feel that
he's on my list. Yeah.
like the booking was terrible with him. If they took him seriously, there's no way Roma couldn't have been a suit wearing arrogant heel and could have been. They just didn't. When they brought him back and they were faces, it just was death for them. And I think Roma gets a bad rap because of it. Roma is so physically gifted, it's stupid. And like I just feel like
he was physically gifted. He had the work. He looked great. I mean,
to this day, man, I just feel like people hate on him for no reason. Like, what are you not going to go?
It doesn't make sense.
If you get signed with WCW and they're like, by the way, we're going to put you in the hole, would you want him to say no thanks? Like, of course he's going to go. And
I haven't earned it.
And I guess you could say Benoit, but I don't think Benoit was underrated. I don't at the time. I think that he was right where he should have been. So. I was going to say Pillman or Mongo on top of that because Mongo, listen, I get, but if you look at it from like, we're watching who's a good wrestler and who's not, I get it. But if you're in kayfabe and you're following this story and you're just following these characters, how is Mongo not one of the best horsemen that was underrated? Like, there's no way it's not.
I guarantee you, many tuned in just to see what he was going to do.
There's so many nitros you could go back where he opened the show, whether it was a tag match with Benoit or whatever, and the place would go goddamn bonkers when he would hit a tombstone. It's crazy. Like, his personality was so. But I mean, if you're going to be a fuddy duddy like a Meltzer or whatever, and you're like, he sucked in there. I was like, okay.
He was the biggest cheerleader for him. He loved being a horseman. His entire life was rooting for the horseman.
You know what, Craig? Actually, that's okay. I'm gonna go with Mongo. That's my definitive answer.
He really felt. I think he was humbled to do it, and he loved it. He's very honored to be a horseman.
Yeah, I think he's okay. That's my answer. Thank you, Craig. That's Mongo.
It's a good answer. Yep. It's a really good answer. But yeah, Mongo's on the list for me. Roma's on the list for sure.
Through what lenses are you watching this from? If you're in kayfabe and you're just watching these characters, like you don't really care if he's a good or bad wrestler. And by the way, when you're paying attention to the characters, like you're watching a soap opera, what is good or bad wrestling? It doesn't exist unless it really goes off the rails, but he was always
if you're
protected.
watching it as a casual, you're like, damn, that guy's dangerous.
Yeah, the fucking place was crazy. Like, Mongo was always dangerous. He had so much fucking like charisma. But he also had, I was gonna say the same thing. He had so much charisma when he was in there, and when he came to the ring, you knew he was coming. Like everybody, it's Mongo. Here we go. I love that answer. I think he's the only horseman. There's not another horseman that's ever been a member that has rivaled Ric Flair's charisma, and Mongo absolutely was like, oh boy, like right there with him, like nobody else. And
by the way, if he had a smitten of talent, he couldn't have done that because he would have underrode Ric Flair a little bit. So the fact that he wasn't a good wrestler, he was just having fun, baby. Like it was. Yeah,
they both loved it.
Like, okay. That's a good one. For audio fans, give us a listen on Apple, Spotify, SoundCloud, and iHeartRadio, and video. Check us out on YouTube at our wrestling channel, and look to your left for several other options. And could you please give us a follow on Instagram at O.W.P 2019 for Jess, Craig, and myself. This is the O.W.P signing off. Have a good one.